Once again, I am Daniel Dazi. Glad you could join us. Now, some hospitals in Accra and parts of the country are beginning to feel the impact of the strike action by physician assistants at the Mamobi General Hospital. A medical doctor told Joy News' Roland Walker the absence of the physician assistants is mounting pressure on them. The physician assistants declared a nationwide strike beginning this morning by withdrawing all emergency and OPD services in public hospitals. But who is the physician assistant and how crucial is their work to medical doctors? Roland Walker finds out from the Mamobi General Hospital.
Okay, so now you're entering consulting room 3. Luckily, I have a medical doctor here. Now let me just get an interaction, so to speak. And she's busy just working, looking at, and currently, what's your name, ma'am? Your full name?
My name is Dr. Salamatu Atanantokma.
Okay. And what are you doing now for the patient?
Oh, we are doing our regular consultations. It's Monday morning. The patients are coming in, so we are seeing the patients.
We came here basically because we are told that there's a strike action by the physician assistants, and we know that they complement your efforts. Of course, they are not medical doctors, but then they are very critical to your work. How many do you have at the hospital?
In this hospital, we have 5 main physician assistants, but in the meantime, 2 of them are on leave. So there are 3 that are supposed to be at post. So the 3 physician assistants are those on strike at the moment.
Usually, what is their importance at a public hospital setting, or any hospital for that matter?
Depending on the hospital, the role of a physician assistant may vary. In our hospital, mainly our physician assistants help us at the outpatient department. They help us with running our special clinics too sometimes. So mainly in this hospital, their role is around the outpatient department.
Would you classify their role as important, and why?
Oh yes, their role is important. Everybody in the healthcare delivery system has a role to play, and their role is important, as I say, especially in a setting that you don't have enough doctors all the time. We put them on our roster. They run emergency duties as well. And then, like I said, our special clinics and our OPD. So they are important. They complement our work from day to day.
Now, them on strike means that it's having a toll a bit on the pressure, because I know Mamobi is located in a dense area in Accra.
Yes, it is having a toll on the patients and how we see patients and the waiting time of the patients and everything, because our OPDs, we have to restructure how we run the OPD. The doctors have to do a little bit more to be able to cope with it. It's having quite a toll. Last week, going by their roadmap of the strike action, they were still doing emergency duties, so they were still around. But today, we realized that they probably will not be around at all until their grievances are addressed. So yes, it will have a toll on waiting time, on even probably how many hours we'll run the hospital today, whether we'll be able to keep up with running a 24-hour duty today.
It all has an impact, 24 hours or not.
Yes, I mean, it's because you have them on the duty roster at different times.
Let's run a quick check in parts of the country, and we've been joined on the phone by Eastern Regional correspondent Kofi Siao, who has visited the Koforidua Hospital. Kofi, what's the situation like at the Koforidua Government Hospital?
Hey, Dazi, at the Koforidua Government Hospital this morning, I can tell you there is traffic here at the OPD because the number of patients keep increasing. And when I spoke to the deputy director of the hospital, Dr. Kadna Newton, he told me that they do not have enough doctors, and that these physician assistants were those helping them. So now that they are on strike, even though they are not that many, it's affecting their services. When you come here right now, people are in queue. They are full to capacity. So most of the people who are supposed to have seats to sit on are all standing, waiting for their turn to visit the doctors that they have in the OPD rooms. They also talked about the fact that apart from the physician assistants who are on strike, the housemasters who all came to the facility are all gone. So the number of doctors who are here doing the work is not enough. So they appeal to government to listen to the plight of the physician assistants so that they can come back to help the doctors at the hospital.
Right. Have you been able to speak with any of these doctors?
Well, when I spoke to the deputy director of the hospital, who is a doctor himself, but I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the physician assistants, any of them who are on strike.
Right. Kofi, thank you very much for that update. Kofi is a man in the Eastern region. He has been following the situation in the Eastern region as regards the physician assistants strike. You're still watching Joy News today. I am Daniel Daz. We will take these important messages, then we will be speaking with the physician assistants themselves. Thanks for staying with us. Now, there's heavy security on the campuses of the University of Education, Winneba, ahead of the induction of Reverend Father Professor Anthony Afol-Broni as the new Vice Chancellor of the university later this afternoon. There's controversy over legality of the induction process following concerns raised by some lecturers at the university, as well as Law Professor Raymond Atuguba, who says President Akufo-Addo would be abetting an illegality if he goes ahead with a planned induction. Presenting reasons for his objection to the induction ceremony in an elaborate piece, Prof. Atuguba said a case pending as the Supreme Court challenging the removal of former Vice-Chancellor Prof. Mauto Avoke makes it a travesty to the rule of law for the presidents to partake in the ceremony. Let's go live to Winneba, where my colleague Richard Kojonyako is stationed at the University of Education. Richard, despite the mood, describe the mood on campus to us.
Well, the mood is charged. I can count up to about 100 security personnel here at the frontage of the main hall of the Anamwa Main Conference Center. They are a mix of armed police officers and some personnel from the armed forces. These are the people that are stationed here, and we are waiting for the arrival of the president and then the vice chancellor, who is going to be inducted into office shortly.
Now, you have been speaking with some lecturers. Exactly what have they been telling you?
Well, you know that this issue started when an assembly member at Winneba took some principal officers of the university. At that time, Professor Mauto Avoke was the vice chancellor of the university, and they questioned the legality of him being in office. And so it led to the removal of about 6 principal officers of the University of Cape Coast. At that time, the one that is shortly going to be inducted into office as a vice chancellor was a pro-vice chancellor. And so he was appointed to be the acting vice chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. And it's been a division or some factions here. Those for Professor Mauto Avoke, the ex-vice chancellor of the university, and the one that is supposed to be inducted today. They raise issues of tribal and ethnocentric and other political reasons. You know that other people have also raised a lot of concerns that it is the machinations from some elements in the MPP that are frustrating the process at the university. Others are also saying that there were too many people that were not from the land of Winneba, and so they wanted a lot of the people that are from Winneba to be in charge of the university. And so that has culminated in a series of court actions. As I speak with you now, there are about 6 court cases, including 2 Supreme Court cases, 2 High Court cases, and 2 from the lower court. And that is why some of the lecturers are forcing the process now, that it will be some illegality if they should go ahead to organize the ceremony and have Professor Anthony Afudwani in office as the Vice Chancellor.
So at what time is the induction supposed to start?
Well, the convocation has just entered the hall. We're waiting for the arrival of the president, and the process will start. The auditorium here is filled to capacity, and a lot more each inside, but they are screened thoroughly by the security personnel that are here in their numbers. And so you cannot, once you enter, you cannot go out because they are placed at vantage point to question or to search you wherever you are going.
Thank you, Richard Kojo Nyako. We'll be coming back to you when the ceremony begins. Now, Van Boven Swansea is law lecturer with the University of Cape Coast. He says as far as the University of Education has not been served an injunction, there's nothing wrong with the process.
Certainly. And the caveat is that unless the university has been served with an injunction prohibiting it from going ahead with this particular induction exercise, the university is always free to go ahead, because the law says that the mere issuance of a writ, and by extension I would understand this to mean that the mere fact that there are pending proceedings in respect of a case does not prevent the parties in the case or any of the parties from exercising their rights thereto. So long as whatever has been purported to be done could always be set aside by a court of competent jurisdiction, that party, I believe, is free to go ahead. Okay. One thing I would quickly add is that, you know, one cardinal principle about the grant of injunction is that there must have been irreparable damage, or irreparable damage is likely to be caused, for which reason nothing could be done in compensation thereof. But so long as the act could be set aside, so long as the party involved could be compensated adequately or otherwise, then the act, in my view, according to my understanding of the law, could always be done.
All right. Here's another argument that Professor Atuguba raises. He says that the court has set aside October 31, that's next month, to give a verdict on this case. And so he
constitutes something prejudicial to the interest of any of the parties. The follow-up question to that is that could anything that flows from this particular intended act, i.e., in this case, the induction ceremony, could it be set aside subsequently? If the answer is yes, then, in my considered opinion, the party could go ahead. That is, the induction ceremony, based on the facts that I have been given, could go ahead, because there is no express provision against it. Okay. It is it's an option open to the university authorities to wait.
Now, if you launch right, you certainly have a greater chance of getting it right. In our latest hotline documentary on right age enrollment, produced by MFA Etiama Eli, we tell you the story of 23-year-old modeling Ifia Akwa, who is currently an auditor with KPMG. Modeling started school at the right age and so got a head start over her peers. Here's an excerpt of the concluding part of the Launchpad, a documentary which is part of our month-long Enroll Me Now campaign.
Modeling started school at age 4, completed university at age 22, and secured her first job a few months after. Modeling is now 23 and an auditor with the international accounting and auditing firm KPMG. Modeling believes it is her confidence which gave her an upper hand over her colleagues who she competed with for the same position. She attributes this confidence to her days in early grade school.
You know, at that age, you do a lot of work. You do stage plays, you do Christmas, how do they call it, Christmas festivities. All those things help. You'll be thinking that the child will have to study a poem for several days, recite it, rehearse. It helps in building the child's confidence. It helps in building the child's retentive memory. It helps the child to socialize.
Sharing her experience in early grade school, Modeling says Those moments are very critical and should not elude any child, and for that matter, their total education.
For me, back in learning skills, when we were going to do poem recitals, I'll shiver. But for the fear of not excelling, I'll come home and rehearse it over and over again till I can memorize the words. And it helped me through SS, it helped me through university. I'm good with memorizing. I just have to see something and I can take it in. So it helped me. Maybe if I didn't get that platform back in learning skills to be doing poem recitals, who knows, I might not be able to grasp things very, very quickly. So I think there are so many benefits.
Now, away from that, farming activities have been identified as a major contributor to global warming and climate change, thereby endangering the environment. On his farm in the Upper West region, agribusiness entrepreneur Conrad Balek has adopted climate-smart technologies to ensure his farming activities don't contribute further to climate change. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo went to meet him for our Joy News special series on climate change, being done in collaboration with the Ghana Climate Innovation Center, GCIC.
Conrad Balek, an agribusiness entrepreneur, is one of such young people. He has been trained to adopt climate-smart agri techniques on his farm so the environment is not harmed.
My dad is a retired agri officer, so we used to do a lot of gardening back home, and I can tell you it has always been beneficial. So I realized that, well, if we did it on a small scale at home, and I used to be very active in that, why then don't we roll it out in a larger scale, provided we have the resources to do that. And so I decided to start venturing into that, and that is how come we set it up.
Conrad is a graduate from the University of Development Studies with a degree in integrated development. He is both a teacher and a social entrepreneur. But nothing excites him more than agribusiness. He applies both theoretical knowledge and practical experiences gained undertaking backyard gardening during childhood to his agribusiness activities today. Every morning, he makes the 1-hour journey from his home office in Wa to Mabase in the Wa East district to work on a 6.5-acre farm.
The team I'm also working with are also becoming conscious of the fact that we are now in a certain space and we have to be careful. So you realize that some of our lands that are lying fallow right now, we have started applying organic manure to them so that by the coming year, those lands will be suitable for production so that we don't have to use fertilizer and other chemicals on the crops because of the mindset that we have actually acquired from GCIC. So we are on our farm. Nobody will be here to see what we do. But they have given us the sense of being responsible and being accountable.
Agricultural activities, including the clearing of forests, the application of chemicals, tillage, misuse of water, among others, are responsible for about 14 to 18% of all causes of global warming. On his farm, Conrad works to reduce that negative impact. The Black Volta lies close to his farm, and he has all the available water to irrigate his fields. But in order to conserve water and protect the environment, he uses canals, shower and drip irrigation methods to irrigate, saving up to 80% of the water that would usually be used.
If it were the other method, we will not be able to regulate the amount of water we need to put because the whole ground will get soaked throughout. But with this method, we're able to give sufficient water that is needed by the crops.
Moving water from the Black Volta onto the farm requires energy. The most common source of power for irrigation is generators, which burn fossil fuel, thereby increasing the Earth's temperature. Smoke they emit also pollutes the atmosphere, causing damage to humans and other living organisms. Renewable energy like solar power, however, does not emit carbon dioxide at all. So Conrad has deliberately shifted the power source on his farm from fossil to solar.
Just watch inside here. Look at this black. Just watch the tube here. All this is what this pump is emitting into the air. And we feel that we don't want to be a part of this. So if this is what it will do to the environment, then we cannot continue to be in this business. So we think that the solar will really help us to also save the environment. But we are also saying that this enclave, so if you have 40 farmers around here and they all have to rely on this, you can imagine the amount of CO2 they are going to emit. But we are putting out an enclave which will offer any interested party a small parcel of land, because we are now working out to pull water onto the land without a machine like this, by using solar system.
So watching Joy News today, I am Daniel Dazi. Let's take you back to that earlier story of the physician assistants embarking on strike from today. We have with us in the studio Anthony Asari Akon, Acting President, Graduate Physicians Assistants Association. Anthony, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So why have you embarked on strike?
Thank you very much. I think our needs are in the public end. Thank you very much, Joy News and then Multimedia Group. You've done so much for bringing our plight to the public domain. What we are asking for is simple. Let me quickly define what physician assistants do. And apart from training, our training, which is shorter compared to medical doctors, a physician assistant generally takes like 4 to 6 years before he can fully practice medicine and dentistry, whilst a medical doctor takes 4 to 8 years before he can fully practice. Our practice is just like doctors. We are trained with the medical model, and the philosophy was imported from the first training of medical doctors with the philosophy of training the doctor of medicine, the MD, and the doctor of osteopathic medicine from the United States. And so the practice of physician assistants is just like doctors. And since 1960, you haven't heard about us. And most of the time you enter the consulting room, you are seeing a physician assistant or a medical officer. And our needs are simple. We practice like doctors. We take care of patients, diagnose, treat, and then whatever will go into the management of a patient. If a physician assistant is on duty, he takes that unanimous decision together with incorporating the patient's views in the care. Yet, we are paid like nurses and then midwives. This and many others, we are asking the government and the Ministry of Health to attend to it, because during negotiations, the ministry or the employer does not have the right, in accordance with the provisions of the Labour Act 2003, to choose a union to negotiate for the employee. But in our case, the ministry has contravened those provisions by choosing the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association to negotiate for physician assistant. And so what a nurse takes is what a physician assistant takes.
What would you like to take?
What we would want to take is simple, that what is equally is good for the goose is equally good for the gander. We are medical practitioners. That is what we do. We are not nurses.
So you want to be paid the same as doctors?
We are not saying we want to be paid the same as doctors, but pay us in accordance with what we do, concern with relation to our job discretion.
So not as much as nurses, not as much as doctors, but more than nurses.
It could be doctors. That is negotiations. If we go and we negotiate more than doctors, fine. And then doctors, I'm sure they won't also sit down for us to negotiate more than them. We are also looking at physician assistant interns who are mandated to practice medicine. They are provisionally registered to undergo internship for 1 year under the Ministry of Health agencies. We are talking about Mental Health Authority, we are talking about the child institutions, we are talking about the tertiary, and they do so on empty stomach. We are calling the government to put them on a structure, at least some allowances, so that they can also, we are also looking at career advancement, where even as I'm talking to you now, there are physician assistant specialists trained in clinical psychiatry and dermatology. They are practicing in various fields as specialists, but on their pay slip, they are still being paid as general physician assistant practitioners. We are looking at the government to immediately convert them and put them on the necessary rank that is necessary. And then also,
right,
yes,
in your engagement with government, what have they told you?
For instance, me per se, I led a group in 2017. Since March, we took the ministry to Labour Commission. We were able to compel the minister to appear by subpoena on 2 occasions. We picketed at the ministry on internship allowance. The minister, current minister, and the deputy minister, Kingsley Jedua Boaje, and the outgone chief director, Dr. Afisa, we sat at a round table and had resolutions. We called off the picketing only for us to come back and nothing happened.
Okay.
So the ministry, we embarked on the sit-down strike in phases. We started by withdrawing OPD service on 10th September. Yet the ministry, you can imagine, they have waited till tomorrow, and even tomorrow, not in the morning, at 2 p.m. before they will even call for hearing, not even negotiations. So it tells you the sluggish attitude of
that they have.
Yes.
Finally, what would it take to see you back in the hospital?
There are things we are requesting for in the short and long term.
Okay.
The short term means that there should be a memorandum of understanding that they should put a documentary evidence to some of the things we are requesting for, especially the interns. There should be a directive. If government budget is fixed, at least the hospital, they generate enough money so that they can be met. And then things like accommodation for physician assistant and other allowances that goes into it should be signed and implemented. If this does not work, we will march straight to the Jubilee House.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for joining us.
Thank you.
Anthony Asari Ako is the president of the Graduate Physician Assistants Association. Still watching Joy News today. Let's move to the Volta region because residents of Akokokpo in the Central Tongue District can now store water, and they have been supplied with sachet water following a Joy News report. The report highlighted the lack of potable water there. Residents were being forced to drink from a muddy source with fears it could negatively impact their health. Relief is getting to the community now. Joseph Opoku Gakpo has more.
This is how the water looks like. Unclean, brownish, muddy, as thick as porridge. Sticks and tree branches lie in them with bubbles brewing all over it. A large chunk of what she fetches is actually mud. But guess what? They drink it like that, without any form of treatment. That's the story Joy News told about 2 months ago on the plight of Akokokpo residents. The district assembly responded by occasionally supplying sachet water to the community so they don't have to rely on the dirty source.
Pure water. This is Nami pure water.
The pure water is what we are drinking now.
Pure water.
We still don't have flowing water yet. The Tongu Residents Association has provided a poly tank to the community as a short-term measure and is working with the fire service to frequently supply the residents with potable water. The tank is here, that's all. It hasn't been filled with water yet.
An
NGO, Water for Real Africa, has been in the community to drill a borehole there. But the poor nature of the road made it difficult moving equipment to the community. They are waiting until the dry season to do so. The drilling vehicle can't come because of the road. The spot for a borehole has been identified, though. The residents, however, insist extending pipe-borne water from a nearby community will be a better solution. The pipe-borne water will be good for us. The other troubling issue in this community is electricity. It's always pitch dark at night, and they want to be connected to the national grid.
Electricity,
We were told the electricity is being extended here, but the contractor diverted it to a different community. Reporting for Joy News, Joseph Opokugapo, Mafia Kokokpo.
And that's it for today's bulletin of Joy News Today. I am Daniel Daze. Thanks for joining us. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. Emmanuel Abwaji comes next with the marketplace, but remember, this Friday, the 21st of September, the Joy News Western World Properties Habitat Fair comes off at the Providence Event Center at La from 8 a.m. Everything you need in terms of building and construction and owning a home, you can get when you come and join us at the Providence Event Center. Have a great day.